What is creative flow? What does that even mean? I hear that question all the time, but I also find myself saying, I got to get into that creative flow. And you hear creative people say that all the time. And then you hear them share about their experience. And we're like, I want that. I want to talk to you about that today. I also have people ask me, Dionne, I love the way your brain works. I don't understand how you come up with this, this, and this, and this. So I'm going to kind of walk you through that process today. In this video, it's not going to be a mindset focused video, but when you talk about creative flow, they kind of go hand in hand. They say that whatever you focus on, you become. So let's just go on a creative flow together. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the flow. Sometimes it goes this way, and other times it's going to go this way, but as long as it keeps moving. So I grabbed some of my fabrics. These are artworks that I've had printed on velvets. So they've all been a piece of art that I've done. Now, this one was a finger painting. This was just a little section of it. You can see the blues. And this one is a watercolor in my heirloom journal. Now, I'm going to show you what it looks like in a little tiny square in my journal and how I've created that into this large yard of fabric. The next piece is also, this is also a watercolor. I want to show you what it's going to look like, and then we're going to create another one. Voila! So good, but this came from a small square on that journal right there. Okay, so this is an example of how one thing leads to another. So one of the most fun about art journaling is I have this and I love this, and let's just say I want to turn this into fabric. Then the fabric can become pillows, or the fabric can become bedding, maybe even wallpaper, which is something I'm currently working on. I can even have these printed and create cards or prints. The next one, let me see where I've done this again. I loved the bright yellow in this and the burnt sienna, so I decided to also have this done in fabric. Boom. Okay, this is what I'm talking about, where one thing leads to another. So now I can take this and have some thank you cards done and have those available maybe for Christmas, for the holidays. Now let's consider going to a bigger canvas. Do you know my friend Nancy Leva? If you don't, you should. In the fall copy of the Turquoise Irish Journal, Nancy Leva did a series of birds, and I feel like her color combinations, even being a colorblind artist, is super inspirational. This one in particular, I love the burnt sienna with the gold leaf and the deep cobalt with black. I'm going to use this color combination as my inspiration for a canvas painting. Well, I found myself a cheat sheet. Actually, it's about 126 pages of cheat sheets. So I seriously, over the last 4 years of having the Turquoise Iris Journal, I have used it so many times as a resource for my creativity. I will read a story, or I will see a color combination that I hadn't thought of before, or I have even taken travel vacations on the pages. And I've thought, that was that spark I was looking for. That's the secret, guys. You've always got to be looking. Don't ever underestimate the value of just getting outside, of walking around, of flipping through the pages of a magazine and just see what other creatives are up to, not because you want to create what they do, but you can take a color combination that they used on a painting and you can say, oh, that magenta and that violet with that crimson. And although you wouldn't think those look that great together, that is so striking. And I want to recreate those colors, maybe on a wedding dress. I want to create a formal dress, or I want to actually paint a handbag with acrylic inks. I use all of this as my cheat sheet for, let me just sit down and let me just flip through here and see what motivates me today. And there are days where it hits you harder and other days where they're just pages, where your mind is busy and you're thinking about other things and you're just flipping through. And then there are other days where you are completely and totally immersed in something. Remember how I talked about the journal and using it for inspiration? Well, if you go to the spring volume and turn it to page 67, my friend known as Shin Shin 210, Jody Goldman Halford, we featured her artwork, and when I stumbled on this, the butterfly, the magenta and the crimson and that fiery orange with the turquoise and the azure, everything about this says, let's recreate this in Dionne style. I'm going to flip through here and find a blank page. I have my inspiration image right here nearby. I also grabbed some inks. I've got brushes, I've got my watercolors, I've got pigments, grabbed some soft pastels from my vintage collection, and I'm just going to enjoy this moment and create and see what transpires when I'm relaxed and calm and enjoying this creative flow. Not only is the journal one of my biggest resources, but do you know how sometimes when you're playing with paint or you've got some sort of supply or craft or even a new tool, that can be a game changer. That in itself can be that spark that nudges you forward, gets over that hump, right? I use DIY paint, and I found early on that if I painted with my fingers, it wouldn't be harmful to me because it's all natural. If I painted on canvas, it allowed me to blend paint without having to even work very hard. If I use it on hats, if I use it on furniture, if I use it on my dresses, my wedding dresses, there are so many different opportunities to use this paint. So it really allows me to keep going no matter what the canvas is. And we can talk a little bit more in this video about the paint and the different properties that it allows me to do and how it's really elaborating, maybe expanded is a better word, for how it's expanded that creative flow that we've been talking about. Okay, so this was a tutorial in my Creative Connection membership. Well, I'm using DIY paint, which is my favorite because it's clay. And when you're working with clay, it pretty well just blends itself. It's like mud. You add a little water and the colors blend together. Well, we started creating this textured piece, and I mixed in some acrylic inks, and then I went to the furniture piece where I used a brayer and created texture. I mixed painterly paint with the DIY paint, our original formula, and then I created this shadowed look, an aged look, by adding black wax from DIY. Also, I took the original hardware, antiqued it a little bit with some gold, and restained, refinished the top of this piece, and the new owner is going to turn it into a bathroom vanity. See that? How everything just rolls one project off of the other. Now, I've got another one I want to show you. This large wardrobe I painted a couple of years ago. Well, recently I was inspired by one of my members' stories and decided to name this piece Erin's Garden. And so I literally just painted right on top of the DIY paint with more DIY paint, even though I'd already sealed it. I know it might sound confusing, but you just have to trust me on this one. I know the paint very well. I continued to add a floral pattern, outdoor kind of floral pattern landscape to the front of this piece and wrapped it around the sides. The beautiful part, again, of DIY paint is I can reactivate it. So I painted this over a series of 4 days where I came back, added a next layer, came back, added a next layer, and then again finished with the gold and finished with the black wax. This one is off to another state very, very soon. Now I got another project over here that you're really gonna like. Here's another project that I thought I had finished. Again, a year and a half later, I got this antique vanity back out because as a retailer and an artist, sometimes things don't sell. So I've decided to adopt the attitude that it's all part of the flow. And even though I might start something 1 year, the next year, 2 years later, 3 years later, I might continue the process. So it was blue, but I recently changed this entire color aesthetic to something that was more inspiring and something that was more on trend with right now. This piece, I started with a yellow base right over the blue, and again, I was able to paint right on top of it. This right here inspired this right here. So you can also see that I'm working on a dress here, finished this with the same coral color with the copper, but it's just on a different canvas. It flows beautifully, and again, it's the same DIY clay-based paint. It's gonna saturate the fabric and it's gonna work like a dye. One thing leads to the next. Let's go check out a handbag. I needed something to carry for my mother of the groom dress. So I just decided I'd get a vintage bag online on Etsy and just go with painting it myself to coordinate with my dress. So don't underestimate sometimes. You also have your own style of creative flow, whether it's starting with a magazine and going into watercolors, or painting a handbag or shoes or a piece of furniture, and that rolls into fabric, and then you get inspired by a piece of fabric and that makes you want to put that canvas on an actual canvas, and then from there maybe you want to print fabric from that, maybe you want to roll into gift cards, maybe you want to take that gift card and turn it into a bookmark. That is flow. That is your imagination being curious about what comes next. So give yourself compassion. Find a support area, a support person, a support group where you can have that connected growth that circles all the way back around to the courage needed to start your creative flow and keep yourself from tripping up. It is absolutely true when you hear the quote, whatever you focus on, you become. And if you see yourself as a courageous, curious, compassionate creative, you will become.